Mark chapter 6. The 6th chapter of the Gospel according to Mark. Beginning with verse 45. And straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship and to go to the other side before unto Bethesda. Now notice and remember, Jesus sent them to Bethesda while he sent the people away. And the Bible said when he had sent them away, he departed into the mountain to pray. And when even was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. And he saw them toiling and rowing, for the wind was contrary unto them. Now they were doing the will of God. He told them to go to the other side. And in the midst of doing the will of God, they toil, pulling at the oars. What was he doing? He was strengthening them. You don't get strength for your burdens. You get strength from your burdens. And in that toiling and rowing, they were getting stronger. The burdens were increasing their strength, just as we, no, not we, just as you lift barbells today. And about the 4th watch of the night, he cometh unto them, walking upon the sea, and would have passed them by. And when he saw them, when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been a spirit, and cried out. For they all saw him and were troubled, and immediately he talked with them and said, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And he went up unto them unto the ship, and the wind ceased. They were sore amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wondered, for they considered not. Now notice this, it's a unique parenthesis here. For they considered not the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. Now what did the miracle of the loaves have to do with a storm in the middle of the sea, the 4th watch of the night? And when they had passed over, they came into the land of Gennesaret, and drew to the shore. And when they were come out of the ship, straightway they knew him, and ran through the whole region round about, and began to carry about in beds those who were sick, where they heard he was. Notice one phrase found in verse 48. And he would have passed by them, or passed them by. My subject for a few minutes tonight is simply this: when Jesus passes by. When Jesus passes by. Let's open the furrows of our heart and ask God to drop seed. Would you just lift your hand? Whatever I need, Lord. Whatever I need, Lord. Tell him whatever I need. Just drop the seed in my heart. You may be seated. Now we usually think of Jesus passing by in a positive sense. You know, something was wrong, but Jesus passed by and stopped, and everything was taken care of, and I just can't wait for the Lord to pass by. Wonderful. But this is in the negative. They were in the middle of the lake, the sea, in a storm, 4th watch of the night. They had been toiling all night. It really shouldn't have taken them over 2 or 3 hours to get across at the place they were. And they had been all night long rowing 3 rows ahead and getting knocked back 2. And suddenly he comes and he passes them by. In their dilemma, in their need, he passes them by. When they needed him the most, and the wind was the highest, and the night was the darkest, marks for a brain, and he should have come as help, but it looked like he was just passing by. Walked by almost undiscovered. Did you ever feel like that happened to you? Is there indifference, Jesus? Don't you care? Didn't you see us toiling and rowing? Don't you know our need? And often our first reaction when we hit a rough spot and we don't see him is because we're focused on the bad news that's swamping us. And if it seems that he's passing by, that simply means he's got something better down the road that we can't see. It's so important to know that Jesus is there whether we see him or not. And I've been in dilemmas where I wondered, I just couldn't see him. And anytime you enter into a new spiritual dimension, you will enter into a new storm. Because there's got to be the toiling and the building of strength. So when you ask God, I want another level. The old adage, every new level you meet a new devil, and that is the truth. There is a new challenge that has to be met. And sometimes he is hard to recognize when he comes in another form. He comes in forms. We get this stereotype God that's always done it this way and always appeared this way. But when he comes in a different form, they had already seen him calm the storm one time in the same book of Mark. But this time it just keeps raging. And the previous two times that he was in boats with them in a storm, he was in the boat. But this time, he's not in the boat. He's not a stereotype God. Doesn't always come like we expect him. He appeared in the garden, and Mary looked at him, and it was him, but she thought he was a gardener. He came in another form. On the road to Emmaus, they called him a stranger. His own disciples called him a stranger. And he was going to pass right on by and leave them. And the Bible said they had to constrain him. He would have gone further, but they constrained him to come home with them, and they fed him. But sometimes God doesn't turn up in the ordinary ways. And when he is preparing us for a new dimension, when he's got plans that he doesn't unfold, as thy day is, so shall thy strength be. We want to bite life off by the weeks and the months and the years. And that's why we get spiritual indigestion. You just take it one day at a time. As thy day is, sufficient to the day is the evil thereof. What are you trying to teach me today? And their reactions to his presence. You better get ready for the unusual. Well, the first thing when they saw him walking on the storm is they wanted to dismiss him as a ghost. One translation account says, it's a ghost. You would think after the time they had been with him and the teaching that he had given them, you would think that these holy apostles would have already picked up that this folklore business about ghosts doesn't exist. But when your faith is short-circuited, you revert back to the old you and carnal trying to figure it out. Because you're more comfortable with an old unknown than a new learning experience. It's a ghost. But you may say, you don't know, Brother Tenney, what I've been through. Let me tell you something. If the devil had authority to defeat saints, none of us would be here tonight. He does not have authority over the church of the living God. Doesn't. The very fact that we are here. Well, the first reaction, he's a ghost. Well, the second reaction, they had gone through earlier storms, and they should have had confidence that he'd go through this one, but the difference was, other times he was in the boat. This time he's not outside. He's outside the boat, and he's walking on the water, and they're trying to keep score. Let me tell you something. Grace is not a scorekeeper. You know, it's twice he was there, and one time there wasn't any storm. Another time there was a storm, and he calmed it, so we got a 50-50 chance. And here's the third time. But whether he was in the boat or out of the boat, both times they were terrified. And I've heard people, and I've preached it too, you know, well, Peter walked on the water, but he got his eyes off of Jesus, or he got his eyes on the storm. Jesus put his finger on the problem when he got in the boat and said, "Where is your faith?" The problem was not the storm. The problem was not where you had your eyes. The problem was, where's your faith? Something short-circuited. You got an invitation to the supernatural, Peter, and your faith short-circuited. This generation is getting an invitation to the supernatural in the midst of a storm. You may be in the greatest storm you've ever been in, but I'm telling you, if you are, somebody's going to come walking on the water. Don't let your faith fail you. Get your eyes off of circumstances. Get your eyes off the storm. And say, this is not going to destroy me. This is going to strengthen me. I'm going to roll away and pull against the winds because I've got direction. All they'd have had to have done is turn the sails around, and the wind would have quickly taken them in another direction, but he had given them direction. And you don't take the easy way when you got hard direction. So away he went. We usually don't talk about this side of Jesus. We think he's the lamb, and we forget he's a lion. We draw so near him in love, but we also have to bow down before him in awe. And they're in the middle of a storm, and all we'd have to do is turn around, turn sails around, and we'd have plenty of wind, but it'd be blowing you the wrong way. You got to go where he said go, whether you understand it or not. Whether it looks as if. Here's the thing. To build our faith for what God is going to do, there's going to be storms. There's going to be winds. We're going to have previous encounters that will either feed our faith or fail our faith. You just got to get your eye on the immediate and what God's saying today. And in the midst of it all, Jesus spoke 3 short sentences. Be of good cheer, period. It is I, period. Fear not. Fear not. Take courage. But in the middle of it are these words, it is I. And I don't care what the circumstances are as long as he's in the middle. You get the I or the Christ in the middle. And fear has to dissipate. It is I. You know, either the Lord will calm your storm or he'll calm you while it rages. There is no waste in God's economy. He knows what he's doing. But for us to reach the prophetic dimension that God wants us to reach, the Bible said of these men, you'll find this, he taught them many things. And that doesn't mean he just taught them by speaking. They were in a crucible of experience and learning. Right now. He didn't have a chalkboard or one of those, what you call them,